You know, there are only 15 teams in each conference, right?
Yeah. I thought that was rhetorical.
Check
My
the
bad.
standings. That's really for everybody. The Grizzlies are 14 in the Western Conference. That's not great. At 19-28, so they're getting a head start on the trade season. Reports confirmed today, in fact, that both Mike Conley and Marc Gasol are now available for trade. Here's their reaction this morning at shoot-around.
It's where we're at, I guess. You know, it's part of the business. You know, it's not like we've been traded yet or anything like that. It's part of it, and you know, we knew with the way things have been going the last few weeks that anything can happen.
That's not going to change, is it? That's not going to change to me. So, you know, my relationship with the Grizzlies might change, but my relationship with Memphis won't.
Now for more, let's bring in David Cobb, who covers the Grizzlies for the Memphis Commercial Appeal. And David, this story isn't the only thing heating up there. Apparently there was a fire in the team locker room this afternoon. What happened?
Yeah, you put Marc Gasol and Mike Conley on the trading block, and the locker room literally catches on fire today. A light dropped in the sauna and sent smoke throughout the building, and everybody had to evacuate just 3 hours before tip-off. So the Grizzlies tonight are operating out of the Memphis Tigers locker room here at the FedEx Forum.
Wow, rich people problems. The light falls into the sauna, right?
Exactly.
Well, for a lot of us, the writing has been on the wall in Memphis in terms of their future and perhaps unloading the Stars, seeing what they could get. What was the tipping point for Robert Pera and management now?
Well, it was the Monday loss to the Pelicans. They lost by 20 at home to a Pelicans team that was playing without Anthony Davis. And this loss came on the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration game, which is a big, big day for the city every year, in front of a packed house. And it was, I think, the death knell, so to speak, in terms of, you know, any hope that this Conley-Gasol reiteration was going to take this team anywhere this year.
Both players carry huge price tags. Gasol has another year at $25 million plus. He could also opt out. Assuming he reaches a games played incentive, which seems likely, Mike Conley has 2 years and $67 million left after this season. How do those deals complicate the trades that could be out there for the Grizzlies?
Well, I think it minimizes what the Grizzlies can expect to get in return for either of them. If you flash back a decade ago, they traded Pau Gasol and they got 2 first-round picks and Marc Gasol back from the Lakers in the deal. Well, Pau Gasol was 27 in the prime of his career at the time. Both of these guys are past 30, they're past their primes, and they've got these huge contracts. And so I think that really kind of minimizes what the Grizzlies are going to be able to get for him. And they've got to be realistic as they listen to these offers, because if they've got, you know, these grand visions of getting back a star player or a bevy of first-round picks, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, those aren't the only 2 huge contracts on the roster either. Reportedly, the Grizzlies are also trying to find a new home for Chandler Parsons, who also makes a ton of money, hasn't played since October. Will a team looking to trade for either Conley or Gasol have to take on Parsons' contract as well?
How could they? I mean, what team has that amount of cap space? You know, unless they've just got a ton of dead money that they can send back that the Grizzlies are willing to take, then I don't see how that would work. But I guess it's not impossible, but it would take a real talented mathematician to figure that one out.
There are a few of those giant contracts in the summer of 2016 that teams are looking to move at this time here in 2019. We'll find out soon enough. Appreciate the time, David. Good to talk to you, and enjoy the game tonight. David Cobb from the Memphis Commercial Appeal. All right, guys, when you look ahead to these two, obviously both talented players. Gasol's a 3-time All-Star, former Defensive Player of the Year. Conley, much discussed, one of the best players, if not the best in the league, who has not made an All-Star team yet, but they've got these big numbers following them wherever they go. What kind of market do you think there is for either?
I think it's robust for both of them in theory.
In theory, yeah.
But it becomes a much more difficult prospect when you look at the numbers, specifically on Conley's deal. And then for Gasol, I know it makes sense that you'd want a big man with his resume, but does he fit in a lot of these places is the question. They've been married to a certain style, GA, that whole grit and grind ideal that they've played in basically, you know, certainly for Conley's entire career in Memphis. It's the only place he's ever played. I don't think he's known. Marc Gasol, likewise, has been ingrained in this thing. I mean, this is the way they've come up playing in this league. You're asking them both to step out of a comfort zone that's been really good to them and for years really good to Memphis. Now you're talking about, can you just take these guys as individual talents and plug them in anywhere? I'm not sure, Matt, it's as simple as that.
It's absolutely not simple. The one advantage you do have, both guys have the necessary skill set to play the game today. Both can shoot it, both can pass it, both can defend it. I would say both have high basketball IQs. So then it becomes a matter of, does the contract make sense? You know, when you look at Gasol's number, you say, well, it's a big number, but he doesn't have 4 more years on it.
Right.
And there's a scenario, I would think, where he might be willing to go somewhere and not opt in the last year and sign an extension.
Like his brother did in
like
San
his
Antonio.
brother did.
Yeah.
And if he's got a chance to maybe go somewhere where he can be a significant difference maker. Because as good as both those guys are, the problem for Memphis is their 2 best players aren't good enough to be the best players on a really good team.
Right.
But if they're your 3rd best player or 4th best player, you're a really, really good basketball team. And so then you got to juxtapose that against the salary. And oftentimes with some of the younger teams that are making a push for the postseason, you can take that salary on because you haven't paid your young stars completely. So
Brooklyn, for instance.
Yeah, Brooklyn makes a lot of sense for me when you start looking at them. And also I would think Memphis, because Brooklyn is going to have first-round picks that could potentially be lottery picks, which is obviously something. That's not the ideal scenario if you're Memphis. But keep in mind, Memphis is not a team that's going to be able to participate in an A-list free agent market. You know, they can sign free agents, but they're not getting the superstars.
Right.
So for them, those draft picks become vitally important because you do want to be able to develop within, much like they did with Jaren Jackson Jr., who could potentially end up being one of those guys at the forefront, like the guys they have on their roster, in essence, who they were able to draft.
So quickly, we're up against time here. What's a realistic haul coming back to the Grizzlies? Or is it just a matter of do whatever you can to get out from under these deals and reset?
No, I think they want young talent.
I mean, I know they want
first-round picks. I think and I do think there's enough value because of the talent of those 2 players that they could get what they want back. It's just a matter if it pans out long-term, if they're able to rebuild. Do they trust that front office? Because they probably should have done this about a year and a half.
Much sooner than this. And do you get one of them moved and not the other? That's that's going to be the difficult part.
Right.
When's the last time a team was able to move 2 veteran contracts like this at the same deadline?
Agree with Parsons.
And then if you think Parsons is going to be a part of that as well, that's a whole lot of moving to do between now and the trade.
I don't see a
3
scenario.
guys who make $25 million and up.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where you're going to move all 3.
Yeah.
No, it seems unlikely. That would be the
not
dream
gonna happen.
right now.
That'd be the executive of the year.
Yes. All right, much more to get to on the way. We'll revisit the night Klay Thompson got hot, even by Klay Thompson standards, and that's saying something.
Klay, deep 3, of one hand slam, finger rolls it up and in. Eat check. Fire! That was just sick. Listen to the crowd roar for Klay Thompson.
4 years ago tonight, Klay Thompson set an NBA record with 37 points in a quarter. The 3rd quarter, to be exact, in a Warriors win over Sacramento. He was 13 of 13 for the quarter, 9 of 9 from three-point range. He had a couple of free throws without missing as well. Perfect quarter for Klay Thompson, who only had 52 that night and asked out of the game with like 9 minutes left because they were up by 30. So that made us wonder, who are the greatest streak shooters of all time? Thompson's got to be on that list, but for you guys, who are the greatest streak shooters you've seen?
Man, that's a great question. A guy that automatically comes to mind for me is Gilbert Arenas. He had some moments where he would light it up, and I mean, he would go at the other best players in the league. I mean, I'll never forget he and Kobe, him taking that challenge to fill it up in Kobe's face one night. But Arenas was, to me, ahead of his time, GA, when you think about a volume three-point shooter before the volume shooting three-point era. He got labeled a gunner, but he was an awesome scorer and an unbelievable streak shooter, guy that could get hot and absolutely blow the roof off the building.
Agent Zero.
Agent Zero. Oh, gosh, I missed some of his crazy exploits. It was good stuff.
There was a lot of crazy there.
Oh,
it was fun for the most part.
And really, it's hard to say who's the greatest because all those guys.
Sure.
I mean, we had some other guys that we were talking about. Ricky Pierce, Dale Ellis. These are guys that were just lights out shooters. The rifleman, Chuck Person.
Yep.
But for me, one of the guys that stood out for me personally was Mahmoud Rauf. I mean, a.k.a. Chris Jackson, back when we played against each other in college. I mean, he, off the dribble, shot the basketball as well as anybody I had ever played against. I mean, his crossover and ability to freeze you and pull. Now, he wasn't a guy that shot it with the range of some of those guys, but in part, I think, because that was the era. You know,
Sure.
You saw more of the great shooters, the Hornaceks, the Jeff Malones. Those guys were mid-range shooters more so than the long three-point shooters that we see today. But, man, they could get it going. And again, once they get in that zone, it didn't matter how good you defended them. If they could get it off, it was more than likely going in.
Somebody came up with Chuck Person.
The rifleman.
Rifleman, no
I
doubt.
just thought of Rashawn Leonard.
Yeah.
He could get it going.
And do guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller count?
They were just
Well,
really good shooters.
I mean, they were
Well,
great
no, but see,
shooters,
that
but
my
were
thing
they
was these guys were
considered
all like, none of these guys are streak shooters.
Right.
Now, the difference is they're always great shooters. Their streaks just go to another level. I mean, it's not fair to call them streak. They were great shooters.
Yeah, I think
there's no doubt about it.
But you know what it
Yeah, it is. Like, because you always say, oh, he's streaky. Well, that means he's inconsistent. No, these guys were, just like Clay is not an inconsistent shooter.
Right.
He just has those stretches where he does, like what he did. We'd never seen anybody make 10 consecutive threes in an actual game.
Right.
You know, before.
Just the other night, yeah.
And so he's done things like that just take it to a whole nother level. But these are some guys in that era, you felt the same way about them that you feel about the great shooters today. They just shoot with more range today. And I think they shoot it in different ways that you didn't get back in those eras. And again, all great shooters, though. But today, what you're seeing with Steph and Clay in particular and James Harden, I mean, we didn't see guys. First of all, when you shot a three in our era, your toes, they had to check to see if you were touching the line every time you shot because everybody was going forward. Nobody ever went away from the three-point line to get threes off the way you see guys doing that. It's incredible the range that these guys have, the confidence that they play with. I'd never seen it. Steph Curry and Clay, for me, where
They
they
could both be
shoot
on this
shots
list.
from,
Yeah.
where they shoot from. I remember one time, remember when Steph hit those shots against OKC a couple seasons ago?
Yeah.
Pull up.
We
from
did a
half court,
demonstration
basically.
here on the floor, and we put the marks down where he shot those shots. And I remember standing on one of them. It was about 38 feet from the basket, and I was saying to myself, damn, would I throw this to get
Right.
it there?
How do you
Because I
shoot
couldn't
like that?
shoot this as a shot to get it there. Because most shots from that distance were heaves.
Yeah.
These guys shoot them with rhythm. It's incredible.
And there's a
to
whole
watch.
generation of kids growing up with that as a part of their game, which, for better or worse, there's a great debate about
little of
whether or not
both.
this is good
A little
for
of both,
basketball.
yeah.
But now it's commonplace. You got guys taking shots from those distances at the NBA level and all the way down. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of shooters develop in these next couple of generations following the lead of guys like Clay and Steph.
You know, the indigenous people in Alaska have 1,000 different words for snow, I think it is. There should be like at least 100 different words for Klay Thompson hot.
Yeah.
Like different varieties of Klay Thompson
Whatever
hot.
it is,
He
you don't
needs
have
his
to
own
dribble all
emoji.
around.
That's what it is.
All right, more to get to here. Checking in on the Pacers.